In the complex world of international trade, tariffs play a significant role. These financial charges imposed on imported goods can significantly influence the economic dynamics between countries. They are not just simple taxes, they are strategic tools used by governments to protect domestic industries, control the flow of goods, and sometimes to exert political pressure. These taxes on imported goods act as a barrier, making foreign products more expensive for consumers and businesses. This can lead to a decrease in the consumption of imported goods, thereby encouraging consumers to buy domestically produced items. However, this also means that businesses relying on imported raw materials or products may face increased costs, which can be passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Former President Donald Trump, known for his protectionist stance, brought tariffs to the forefront of US trade policy. His administration's approach was to use tariffs as a bargaining chip, to renegotiate trade deals and to address what he perceived as unfair trade practices by other countries. This strategy was particularly evident in the trade tensions with China, but it also had significant implications for other trading partners, including India. India, a rising economic powerhouse, found itself in the crosshairs of Trump's tariff strategy. As one of the fastest-growing economies in the world, India has been an important player in the global market. The imposition of tariffs on Indian goods by the US was seen as a move to address the trade imbalance and to push India to open up its markets further to American products. This essay delves into the implications of Trump's tariffs on India, examining the potential consequences for both nations. The tariffs not only affected the economic relationship between the two countries, but also had broader geopolitical implications. Analysts and economists have debated the effectiveness of these tariffs, with some arguing that they have led to a more balanced trade relationship, while others believe they have caused unnecessary friction and economic disruption. The US and India, two of the world's largest democracies and economies, share a complex trade relationship. This relationship is characterized by both cooperation and competition. On one hand, both countries benefit from strong economic ties, with significant trade in goods and services, investment flows and technological collaboration. On the other hand, differences in trade practices, regulatory standards, and economic policies have often led to disputes and negotiations. While both countries acknowledge the importance of strong economic ties, differences in trade practices and policies have often led to friction. Issues such as intellectual property rights, market access, and trade deficits have been points of contention. The imposition of tariffs has added another layer of complexity to these issues, making it even more challenging to find common ground and to negotiate mutually beneficial trade agreements. Trump's decision to impose tariffs on Indian goods added a new layer of complexity to this relationship, raising concerns about a potential trade war. Such a scenario could have far-reaching consequences, not just for the US and India, but for the global economy as well. It underscores the delicate balance that must be maintained in international trade relations and the need for careful negotiation and diplomacy to resolve trade disputes. In 2025, President Trump reinstated tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, a move that sent shockwaves through the global trading system. This decision was part of a broader strategy to bolster American industries and reduce dependency on foreign metals, a policy that had both supporters and detractors. The tariffs, set at 25% for steel and 10% for aluminum, were applied universally, targeting imports from all countries, including India. This broad application meant that no nation was exempt, creating a ripple effect across various global markets. Trump justified these tariffs on the grounds of national security, arguing that a strong domestic steel and aluminum industry was crucial for US defense. He emphasized that the ability to produce these materials internally was vital for maintaining military readiness and independence.
However, critics argued that the tariffs were more about protectionism than national security. They suggested that the move was designed to shield American companies from international competition rather than address any genuine security concerns. They pointed out that the US already had significant domestic production capacity for both steel and aluminum. Critics believed that the existing infrastructure was more than sufficient to meet national defense needs without imposing additional tariffs. The tariffs, they argued, would primarily serve to raise prices for American businesses and consumers. Higher costs for raw materials would likely be passed down the supply chain, affecting everything from construction to consumer goods, while potentially harming relationships with key trading partners like India. Diplomatic tensions could rise as affected countries sought to retaliate or negotiate exemptions, complicating international relations and trade agreements. Economists warned that such tariffs could lead to a trade war, with countries imposing their own tariffs in response. This tit-for-tat scenario could disrupt global supply chains, increase costs, and ultimately slow down economic growth worldwide. On the other hand, supporters of the tariffs argued that they would incentivize American companies to source materials domestically, potentially creating jobs and boosting the local economy. They believed that a focus on Made in USA could lead to a resurgence in American manufacturing. The long-term effects of these tariffs remain to be seen, but one thing is clear. President Trump's decision has sparked a significant debate on the future of global trade and the role of protectionism in modern economies.
Central to Trump's trade policy was the principle of reciprocity. This approach aimed to ensure that American businesses faced a level playing field in international markets. Trump argued that many countries, including India, imposed unfair tariffs and trade barriers on US goods, putting American companies at a disadvantage.
To address this perceived imbalance, Trump announced a policy of reciprocal tariffs. Under this policy, the US would match the tariff rates imposed by other countries on American products. In other words, if India imposed a 50% tariff on a particular US product, the US would respond with a 50% tariff on a comparable Indian import.
India's tariff structure has long been a point of contention in its trade relations with the United States. Trump repeatedly criticized India for what he considered unacceptably high tariffs on a range of US goods.
He specifically targeted India's automotive sector, where tariffs exceeded 100% on certain vehicles. Other US products, including agricultural goods and manufactured goods, also faced significant tariff barriers in the Indian market.
These tariffs, according to the Trump administration, made it difficult for American companies to compete in India and contributed to the large trade deficit between the two countries. The trade deficit between the US and India has been a persistent source of tension in the bilateral relationship. In 2024, the US trade deficit with India reached $45.7 billion. This means that the US imported significantly more goods from India than it exported, a situation that Trump found unacceptable.
Trump argued that this trade imbalance was evidence of unfair trade practices on India's part. He called for India to reduce its tariffs and open up its market to more American goods. India, however, countered that the trade deficit was a complex issue with multiple factors at play, including differences in competitiveness and consumer demand.
Faced with Trump's tariff threats, India found itself in a delicate position. On the one hand, India recognized the importance of maintaining strong economic ties with the United States, its largest trading partner. On the other hand, India was unwilling to bow to pressure and make concessions that it deemed detrimental to its own economic interests.
India's response to Trump's tariffs was measured and strategic. India engaged in trade talks with the US, aiming to address the concerns raised by the Trump administration. However, India also made it clear that it would not hesitate to retaliate with tariffs of its own if necessary.
The standoff over tariffs between the US and India has the potential to significantly impact the future of the bilateral relationship. This dispute, which has been brewing for some time, centers around the imposition of tariffs on a range of goods traded between the two nations. The economic ramifications of this standoff are far-reaching, affecting not just the two countries involved but also the global market. Several potential outcomes are possible, ranging from a full-blown trade war to a negotiated settlement. Each scenario carries its own set of consequences and challenges.
A trade war, with escalating tariffs and retaliatory measures, would be the most damaging outcome for both countries. This scenario would likely lead to increased costs for businesses, disruptions in supply chains, and higher prices for consumers. It would disrupt bilateral trade flows, harm businesses and consumers on both sides, and potentially damage the overall relationship. The economic strain could lead to job losses, reduced investment, and a slowdown in economic growth.
Alternatively, a negotiated settlement could pave the way for a more balanced and mutually beneficial trade relationship. This would involve both countries coming to the table with a willingness to compromise and find common ground. This would require both sides to make compromises and work towards common goals. Such a settlement could lead to the reduction or elimination of tariffs, increased market access, and stronger economic ties.
Ultimately, the direction of US-India trade relations will depend on the willingness of both nations to engage in constructive dialogue and find solutions that address their respective concerns. The ability to navigate these complex issues will be crucial in determining the future of their economic partnership.
As we look ahead, the stakes are high, and the world will be watching closely to see how this critical relationship evolves. The outcome of this standoff will not only shape the economic landscape of the US and India, but also have significant implications for global trade dynamics. The decisions made in the coming months will be pivotal in setting the course for future cooperation and economic growth.